So if a company posts a job, are they actively hiring for that position?
The only people who know the answer to that question is whoever posted it. After I made my video talking about LinkedIn and the investigation that has come up from the state of Texas, I had so many current talent acquisition professionals hit me up and say that, yeah, like the company tells me to post stuff, but like we're not talking to a soul who puts their info, who applies. And not just as a job seeker, but as, and these people too, these people who said this too, they're like, I'm not a fan of it, but I can't lose my job, so I post it.
Right.
And that is the really messy, unfortunate reality.
Welcome back to Control Your Career, the podcast that helps you navigate the workplace with more confidence and make intentional career decisions. I'm Julia Toothacre, your strategic career consultant, and this week we're continuing my conversation with Francis Tank Rhodes about why hiring feels so complicated right now. Last week, we caught up on Tank's job search, talked about some of the challenges he's seen in the hiring process, and started digging into some of the assumptions people make about how hiring works, including a pretty extensive conversation about applicant tracking systems and what they are and aren't doing with your resume. So you definitely want to go check that out if you haven't seen it. In this second half of our conversation, we're going even deeper. Do companies know what they're looking for? Do they hire the most qualified candidate? How much does networking really matter in this process? And when you see a job posted online, is the company really hiring for it? Yes, we are talking about ghost jobs. There's a lot of nuance behind each of those questions and the topics that we're going to be covering in this episode, which is exactly why Tank and I wanted to have this conversation. So let's jump back in. Okay, I want to point out a couple other things that this research, I guess, I don't know, it was like a whole project that they did. They also found that tailored resumes convert to interviews at 2 times the rate of generic ones. What this said to me was if you're using an AI to write your entire resume and it sounds generic, you're not getting through. And this is something that I work with my clients where I'm like, look, you can use AI. I'm not anti-AI. I'm not saying you can't do that.
Right.
But you have to use it in a way that your resume is still unique to you. So there still needs to be numbers. There still needs to be a story and a message that it's saying. And the problem is too many people are relying on exactly what it's spitting out.
Right.
And you can't do that. Like, use it to enhance a bullet point, or add some context, or better yet, ask it a question. Say, hey, here's my position. Here's what I'm applying for. Ask me questions to help me better tailor, or...
And even then, get another person.
Always
get another person, because there's the argument that could be made for like, well, the companies are doing it. It's like, yes, you are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
My fear with the direction that this is going is that we, not so much like, having lack of context even, that's a terrifying thought, but my fear is that this is going to be such a like increase in growth and misunderstanding of like how I need to behave versus what's expected of me in this specific context, that like hiring managers and hiring teams will just say that like, this is just blatant, whatever resume I get, all of them are lies. And that's what we don't want to happen.
Yes.
But there is still some value in the candidate's feedback of like, okay, you are doing it, so why can't I do it? even just a little bit that I do it.
Yeah.
Because we also, again, we know this thing isn't behaving in the way that we are all told that it eventually will be. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. I don't know what tomorrow is. But the point is to say we get both sides, and there is a basic understanding of like how these things work fundamentally before we can go to critique it. And I've had my kind of, ebbs and flows of like, all right, I can see how this is useful. But most of the time it's not, because like my brain works and I could read.
Right. Right. And I think, I look at the example of I'm a busy, burned out professional whose mind is not at 100%.
Yeah.
Because they're
I'm tired. I have kids. I gotta make dinner. My partner's not home yet to help with stuff because they're doing their second job. Or so like, again, like we can continue to say all the context and nuance has to be stated here. So y'all don't say nothing crazy to us.
It's not bad. And here, okay, I will also equate it back to probably, well, not even 10 years ago, but I'm going to go back that far. This to me is also very similar to, and I'm not trying to hate, it's just an observation. People who have been trained by certain resume writing certifications that are available out there. I can tell you, I know when somebody has a resume writing certification or when their resume has been edited by somebody with this certification, I can tell. It has a specific format that it follows, and they all sound the same.
Yep.
And that wasn't pre-AI. These were all people being trained to review resumes the exact same way.
All of us who have identified as some kind of coach or something at some point definitely figured out how to put a link in our bio to download this free resume template. And almost all of them look the same.
They look the same. They look the same.
Again, goes back to, all right, well, we have this lack of diversity of identity and thought while also saying that like this is the thing you want, and not only not behaving that way, but not producing it either. Right. And I would argue this is something I've had my clients do unprompted by me, but has been a really good exercise that multiple of them have done. They will put their resume into an AI and say, what do you think this person is about? Basically, like probably a better prompt than that. But what they're trying to do is get an objective opinion about the information that they are giving. Now, can I do that as a career coach with 15 years of experience? Yes, I can. And I would say 50% of the time, I'm going to tell you your resume sounds generic. If what is in your resume could be written by the person sitting next to you because you do the same job, it is too generic. And I think that's what we're seeing with AI is it's generic because you're not giving it nuance and context and details to make it more specific. Because like, in order to get that, you got to tell this program your entire life story. And even even that response is going to be generic. Yeah. So like it's
and you have to tell the truth.
You have to tell it right. Say that again. Say that.
You have to tell the truth, everybody. I know there are people out there saying to lie. Don't lie.
Please don't do that. Oh my God.
Lie.
Oh my God.
I know that there's this whole like, well, the companies are lying. And okay, I get it. The problem is, let's go back to the forklift example that you gave a little bit ago. Well, one, if you can't produce whatever certification that you got, that's red flag one.
Right.
Or if you fake that certification and now you go, right, and you do the job and you injure yourself, you injure somebody else, who's on the hook for that? The company. Right. And guess what happens? Now they're mad. Now we have more process in place and more things in place. And our
And I hope you don't think you're going to clock in tomorrow after you knock over $50 million worth of product.
Right.
You don't
now
work there no
you're
more.
getting fired. Like, that's my thing is you have no idea what the implications of you lying are. Now,
Right.
that's not to say, I know some of you have lied and you've gotten the position and you've gotten through it. Great. I love that for you.
Yeah.
That is
I'm not going to be, if you beat the game, I'm not going to be a hater. But if you beating the game causes someone else's hardship, we have a colossal issue.
That's
and you're
an
not the person you think you are.
experience. Yeah, that's one person's experience of it
Right.
working out. What I don't know is maybe this person is exceptionally intelligent. Maybe they are really good at reading people. Maybe they're really good at learning things very quickly.
Right.
So that person was able to lie and work through it. But this other person isn't.
You are not like that.
Like, this
you can
is
try.
nuanced.
A lot of us have tried in some capacity. Because, all right, there's a few creators I've seen kind of address the lying thing. There are certain things you can absolutely slide on your resume and like play it up a little bit. Because the point is to impress. But if I'm saying a bunch of stuff that...
Are you talking about Mike's video?
Not even just him.
Okay. He
just
did a video on this not too long ago. And I was like, this is the best video.
I have said this before.
He got dragged for it. Like, it was he got dragged in it for a number of comments. And then so many people stole that video word for word. I was like, oh my gosh.
But this is what we're talking about, right? This lack of original thought.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we complain about it with everything else and then go and perpetuate the behavior. That's not crazy?
Yeah.
Because it's driving me nuts.
Well, and I will say, like, this is going to sound like a plug. It's not. I have a resume guide that I had recruiters look at and everything, but I've been editing and writing resumes for 15 years.
Right.
So I have this guide. It was created a number of years ago, probably like 4, maybe 5 years ago. And I talk about the things that you can get away with. And I don't say it specifically as like, here's what you can lie about. You know, that's the really clickbaity way to say it. But what I talk about is your titling, right? Does your internal title make sense to the external world?
Right.
And if it doesn't, then you need to change it to something that is generic enough that is going to get picked up the right way by a filter or by a human.
Right.
And that's not changing your level. That's not changing the whole thing. But sometimes we just get weird internal titles. And then you put that title somewhere on the resume, right? Like somewhere either underneath, in a parentheses, in a bullet point, whatever. So they know that you're not like lying about it. But I have had to do this with so many clients because they had terrible titles. They did not talk about what they actually did.
And I have a very specific example in the popularity aspect of the corporate world. Gary Vee, and people who love or hate, I haven't seen him in a few years. I'm perfectly okay with that. If this is still a role at his entertainment company, he had a chief happiness officer.
Yes, I remember that.
Who the heck is that? And what do? If you send me a resume, it was like, I was a chief happiness officer. The best conclusion I can come to is you were a chief people officer, chief HR officer, right? But if I read the rest of those bullet points,
like culture, maybe.
Yeah, people experience, right? But if I read those bullet points and it reads like you were just like an event planner. I mean, we gotta. I'm not saying it's not valid. It just doesn't work here.
Yeah.
So again, it's the other side of this where like, I'm not saying candidates are absolutely like not doing anything wrong in all these aspects. I have, right? The other side of this is like, okay, how are we making this make sense to whoever's reading this thing? Right. If they get to it, again, we've had the pushback from hiring teams and decision makers where they're like, well, there's just too many of you. I have my own response to that. But yeah, like there are too many of us and you're not going to get your resume read. That doesn't mean ghost. We're going to keep saying that. But like that is what it is. I'm not going to know what a CHO is.
Right.
I have no idea what that means.
Right. Right. Okay. I want to point out a couple more things from this report because, again, I think it's really important for people to see. One of the other things was 2-page resumes perform as well or better than a 1-page resume at every level. This is something that I have been trying to combat for so many years. And I get the most pushback from my students. So these are college students, juniors and seniors. And the reason that I get pushback from them is because a professional in their field or a professor who's not a professional in the field anymore and should not have an opinion on this tells them that they are entry level and they need a 1-page resume. And I'm like, well, first of all, you're applying to everything online, so it doesn't matter. We're not printing things out anymore. If you're talking about going to an event like a career fair, okay, maybe have a 1-pager, maybe, but I'm going to guarantee that the people at that event are not collecting physical resumes. They've got a QR code that says, hey, apply here and say that you were at this event.
Right.
Because we're not collecting paper anymore, like that's...
You can't just roam into a place and be like, I want to work here now.
Yeah.
Everything is online in every industry, all of it.
Everything. And if it's not through an ATS, it's an email. Right? If it's like a small company that does not have an ATS, you're still emailing because you can't manage paper like that anymore. And most people don't even have printers. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So that's happening. I had a student too that submitted a 2-page resume and said, I know that this is supposed to be 1 page. I don't know how to cut this down. Can you help me? And I'm like, sure. I looked at the resume and I was like, nope. Don't cut it down, because if you cut it down, you are cutting the pieces of you that make you unique, especially as a college student.
Right. Because you're already being critiqued for not having enough experience. You're going to be, you are being classed as underqualified before these people, you even give them your information. Right. Yeah. So, and I've had this argument with hiring managers where it's like, well, yeah, this person just finished college like 2 weeks ago. So I'm not really sure why you wanted this to read a certain way when you're saying this is what you're looking for.
Right.
Again, like you were saying, the other side of that is, and there's a word you use, and it's, I say this thing all the time, words matter. Suppose. That's a very powerful word in a lot of contexts. Telling someone something is supposed to happen when it involves your livelihood, because working is your livelihood. It's the majority of it. That can get dangerous real fast.
Right. Right. Okay. The other finding, which we've said in multiple ways, knockout questions, not keyword scanning. So I'm going to say it again. Knockout questions, not keyword scanning, are the main automated filter.
Again, that's not to say the questions that you are answering or not answering in a particular way should or should not be there. We don't know that. We don't know what those are as candidates. And I can, again, being someone who's in these things on the other side and very familiar with it, like, again, there is probably someone pushing back being like, hey, I don't know about having this here. Because another thing, to go back to a question you asked earlier that I've seen a significant increase in, and I think this plays a huge role in why the drop is taking place and people who've just like given up looking. When you open an application now, there's like minimum 4 interview questions in there.
Knockout.
They're knockout questions. They're just an open-ended answers versus drop downs and multiple choice now.
Right.
And I'm gonna for those of you who know me well enough by now, I don't consider what I say controversial. I just want people to challenge themselves and put things into perspective. And if you don't like me for it, that's cool. I can't say that I agree with having at the very least, that many of them as an HR professional, as someone, a recruiter or hiring manager, all those things, because I get what you're trying to do. But the other side of that is I also know you're not reading all of this.
Right. Well, they're using it as a filter.
They're using it as a filter.
But then, so again, this goes back to what if I'm a candidate that knows that I can do this job, but I come from a different field and a different industry, and I want to make this change, and I have transferable skills, but I don't have the exact titles.
Right.
And I technically don't have the exact experience the way that you framed it in the knockout question.
Right.
So I'm going to say, no, I don't have this experience, even though maybe you have a version of that. This is, so again, nuance, right?
Right.
I think this is what people are experiencing more than anything. And that doesn't mean that you lie.
Right.
Because there's going to have to be a verification at some point, because then if you don't have the experience, a recruiter's going to read it and go, well, they don't have this experience, and you're going to get rejected anyway, which is why now is not the time to make big career shifts, like lateral moves.
Unless you have every kind of resource that's, you know, in place that makes sense for you to be supported in that transition. I did the first time. I do not have that now.
Yeah.
A lot of us do not have that now. Things have changed significantly in the last 4 to 6 years.
Yeah. Okay. Yo, we spent a lot of time on that one topic. I knew this was going to happen. And look, whoever is listening to this, I'm pretty sure, based on the conversation we've already had, that this is the second half of this podcast. Like, I think I'm going to cut it at some point, and you're listening to the second.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what's happening.
We're not trying to hurt nobody. We just want to make sure everything makes sense.
Okay, so I want to go into more of an opinion, common misconception, but I think one that you and I can talk about confidently. So this is, companies know exactly who they are looking for to hire.
No, they don't. No, they don't. I'm telling you right now, they don't. Let me go ahead. No, they don't. And I'll tell you why. Because hiring would happen a lot faster and the turnover would be a lot lower. And in so many ways, people, again, you're frustrated. I'm frustrated. I'm pissed off. And your responses are valid. And the longer something like this goes on for all of us, the harder it is to be even willing to keep things in perspective. But it is extremely important. No, they don't. They have an idea based on a goal, team goal, company goal, whatever needs to be achieved. The amount of time that gets spent, even just having a conversation amongst peers internally on like what something should or shouldn't sound like. And we're talking about on the better end of this, like this company has great interview training. These people know how to talk to people and, you know, weed out what they do or don't need, all of that stuff. It can still take a significant amount of time. Now, that significant amount of time is subjective because I can't tell you how long it should take you. We just are giving these opinions based on averages we've seen through our working lives.
Right.
But no, they don't. And the ones that do, or, you know, because there are plenty that do, of course, there's it's almost like too far on the other end of that spectrum where it's very, very, very specific. When I was at, when I started my HR career, I was a recruiter at an agency and I had a client who like wouldn't hire people who didn't go to certain institutions for a role. So it's like, this dude knew what he was looking for. The way he was going about it, I strongly disagreed with.
Yeah.
But that's the other side of that spectrum where it's like, it's too far over. And I think because there's so many companies and people who hire and all kinds of stuff, it's really hard. Again, a lot of this stuff is from specific data sets. No one's interviewing millions of people. You would never be able to produce enough time to curate that much data. Not as an individual, you know, an independent reporter or researcher, right? that would take years. And by the time you publish that research, 5 different changes have already taken place in the marketplace. But, for for the most part, no, they don't. And that does play a huge role in how long it takes for you to even get a response for something.
Yeah.
There's so many, hopefully, conversations about what something should or shouldn't look like. And then by the time it gets figured out, sometimes, that role either gets filled or it gets taken down because it's like, we found who we thought we were looking for, or the business need changed so dramatically that like, yeah, you applied, but like, we don't need anybody for this anymore because we have to spend this money on something else.
Yeah. Okay. I want to say the hard thing that we've talked about in other conversations, which is I think that I don't want to say a lot, but I think there's a subset of hiring managers that know exactly what they want, but they can't voice that because it's illegal. And so what they're doing is they're hoping that the recruiter is going to bring them the unicorn person that they have in their head that does look a certain way, that does sound a certain way, that does have a certain background and education and whichever check boxes they have internally. Hiring managers can push back on me, but the good ones are going to be like, I don't do that. Well, you probably don't, but that doesn't mean that there aren't hiring managers that do.
Y'all can push back on her. Y'all not going to push back. I'm going to tell you, sure, she's right. And again, that's not to say there isn't a reason for it. It doesn't mean that there's always a good reason for it. It could be that we're doing you. And again, I'm going to speak from both sides here. What it was popular to talk about, implicit and subconscious bias, right? You are drawing conclusions on who should or should not be in the seat with you. Based on, taking whatever you see in a resume or a conversation. If you granted someone an interview, like this person, I mean, we had this conversation last year where my parents was the reason I didn't get picked between 2 people. That's crazy to me. Because what do you mean by that? Right. And once that's done, it's done. Doesn't mean it's not hurtful or anything like that. But you do have that. If you don't have that, you're not a person. The point is to be aware of it. But there are a lot of you that are aware of it and don't care because this is what maybe your boss is like, well, this has to be a particular way. And you don't have any control of that. And you're not trying to get fired.
Right.
Cool. Right. The people who are coming to you rationally can only go as far as assuming that about you, assuming that their parents, the way they maybe talked about how they worked on a project, their background, any of that stuff plays a huge role. And again, I'll go back to that client who was like, I kind of picked up what was happening where he only wanted people who who graduated from certain institutions. And it's like, okay, but like, there's only certain kind of people who can get into those institutions. So you're saying the thing without saying all of the thing.
Right. Well, and if you break it down by major type, it gets even more nuanced.
It gets wild real fast. And it does make a recruiter's job harder. I want y'all to understand, you talent acquisition professionals, I know. I know. There's still a way to behave on both sides. There's still a way to move and shake on both sides. And we understand time, lack of training, lack of, having a voice to push back or improve upon, add on, co-sign, whatever. But yeah, a lot of y'all are making decisions based on implicit biases. And it's not cool. And I'm going to tell you to your face, it's not cool if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. And I would argue, too, that the job description that you read, don't put all your money on that job description. Yeah. Some of them are really short and they don't have enough information. Some are really long and they've got too much information. And for whatever reason, that passed by somebody as okay.
Right.
And a lot of the time, it's a hiring manager that's putting that together, not HR or a recruiter or whatever. And I would argue, at least in my experience, the recruiters are the ones that kind of push back on the hiring managers to say, hey, this is not very clear.
Right.
Help me understand if it's vague or if it's got a million bullet points. It's like, well, what is actually important to you? Because if the recruiter is doing a screening call, they have to know what they're looking for. You know, so I think recruiters get like the short end of the stick in a lot of these conversations.
For sure.
And I'm like, I think we're not blaming the hiring managers for the way that they're communicating these things to recruiters. Recruiters are the middle person.
Right.
In this. They are not writing the job descriptions. They are not, in most cases.
In most cases.
They are. In some cases, they are.
Some cleanup, being the one to post it, making sure it goes where it needs to go.
Yeah.
That is
or
the majority of our
updating
responsibility.
Something that already exists and they're getting a sign off from somebody and all that, especially if it's a more generic position, then they're probably doing that. But again, even those generic positions are usually pretty specific about what they're looking for. Okay, this segues into another common assumption that I know that I've heard, and I feel like I hear this sometimes from the older generations, which is companies hire the most qualified person.
And okay, I shook my head a little strongly there. We gonna keep it honest. Yes and no. And I don't think it's 50-50 either. This is one of the few things I don't think is 50-50 because there's a human side of this where all of us believe we are or can be or, possess the ability to be qualified, right?
Right.
The majority of that is not true because there's too many people talking about y'all who have, organizations, not candidates, who have been on. We see who gets picked, right? Or we have an idea of who got picked, and then 3, 6, 9, 12 months later, that role's open again. Now, we can't prove that you're just looking to add another person to the team. But like LinkedIn exists and LinkedIn tells on everybody. Yes. Right? We're going to talk about them. But LinkedIn tells on everybody. So when we see someone's moved on, we don't have to know the context. People don't need to, why you're fired, quit, lay off, whatever. But that role is open again in some way, shape, or form. We as candidates are like, well, I already applied. So like, clearly something happened here. But then people internally they're going to social media again and they're saying like, I don't understand how this person still works here. I don't understand how we've made this decision. I don't understand why I'm suddenly the person that can't make a certain part of a project or workflow make sense. So no, because in a lot of instances, we have been the unqualified person or not fully qualified to do the thing that we were hired on for. That's because no two companies operate the same, even for the same position. Right. So, just like the previous topic of, people know what they're looking for. No, they don't. And no, they're not always hiring the most qualified person. Because then if that was the case, we can't have the conversation we were just having about discrimination. Yeah. That completely nullifies that. And that is disingenuous.
Yeah. And this is kind of the old school, like good old boys club mentality. And it's not, we use that phrase, but it happens across genders, across races, across where you're from, across, it happens across everything. If you have the right connection to the right person, and whatever, look a certain way, sound a certain way, have this certain very specific experience. It's like the people that are like, oh, I'm ex Google, I'm ex Meta, which I'm like, that's like, there
Fine.
are people that only want to hire people from the big tech companies. So I get it. I get why they do that, but it's the same idea. It's still a bias
Right.
that exists. Why is that person that worked for Google so much better than the person that worked at this other lesser known company that did the same job, maybe even more so?
More so.
Like it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I do want to point out we did some research for this because we wanted to try to back up some data here. So there was an HBS article called "Dismissed by Degrees." And this was really, I have a lot of opinions on this as somebody that works in higher education, but the main finding, it said many employers require bachelor's degrees for jobs where they're not actually necessary. And then more than 6 million workers have been screened out of jobs because employers required bachelor's degrees that they did not need. So I saw this happen in higher education. And I believe that when I got into higher education, I was watching the shift happen in real time. So in higher ed, you have a lot of administrative positions. So some of them are like executive administrative positions to like deans, VPs, the president, all of that.
Right.
That's its like own thing. And then you have more of your like school level admins and all of that. And I watched in multiple institutions that I was in the transition from administrative assistants who were predominantly women of a certain generation who did not have any kind of formalized education, and their positions when they were retiring, and the job descriptions specifically saying that you needed to have a bachelor's degree.
It's a moving of the goalpost.
And it was such an interesting transition to watch because the women, and I'm saying that because it was women. I like every institution I was at, it was women. Their level of experience and knowledge around the business, around administrative work specifically, was so high that I also watched these bachelor degree people that came in, sometimes it was a man, majority of the time it was a woman, come in and they did not have the same level of skills. They knew technology better.
Sure.
But the way that they looked at situations, the way that they problem solved, how they viewed the leader that they reported to, wildly different. And those people almost always cycled out within 2 years.
Yeah. It plays such a huge role. And I'll share this when I first started recruiting, and this was even before I got into this agency. The person who led me into this or brought me on was actually a retail manager of mine years before that. And I remember when I quit my last retail job, and I'm in like month 3 or 4 of just working temp jobs and whatnot around the city. And we're going back and forth, and I finally get to see her in person because I hadn't in a few years. We have this conversation, and she said something that blew my mind because, again, we live in such when you're outside looking in, it's like, all right, well, if I'm trying to make a pivot, I'm seeing things and I'm not seeing where I can align, and I'm not sure how to translate my skills to show someone I can do this. One of the things she said to me was, well, you don't need no one goes to school to be a recruiter.
Right.
And I was like, oh, so all of this is made up? Like, all of this is made up? And she's like, well, yeah, like, you know, I'm one of the people who hired you on as a leader when you worked at my store. Like, you ran the store. You helped hire people. You trained literally everyone that came after you. That's all. That's all it is, right? Like, and you learn the harder skills, you learn the interpersonal skills later, like how to translate things and how to read between the lines and how to check for someone's mood or all of those
Mhm.
things, right? Because no two people are the same and no two people relay information the same. But when she said that, was like, oh, okay, this is a confidence that I didn't know I was supposed to have.
Mhm.
And that's a really hard thing to like sit with within yourself, because now all these years later, I've been doing this I'm at the end of my 8th year of being an HR professional. And this is why I say the things I do and think the way I do. It's like, there's so much of this. Like, I will never sit here and say that education isn't important. When you're creating a new layer of discrimination that is completely unnecessary, that's where the problem lies.
Right.
Because that again goes back to, okay, well, the older generation is telling us like, well, we did have on the job training. Well, then you changed it to where like you just got to figure it out, because I'm too exhausted to teach someone something else. It's like, well, I came in here with most of the knowledge and skills. I just need you to show me what I'm supposed to do with it when I'm here.
Right.
And I think again, getting a degree, if that's what you want to do, that's cool. I applaud that, especially because none of this is cheap. But, we praise people for making a pivot in their majors, and then it still doesn't really matter in the corporate world unless you're doing something very specific. I don't want someone with like, you got a degree and like, you got an arts and you about to perform brain surgery. Don't do that.
Right.
We're not talking about that. Don't do that to me. But like within the general context of like, again, I don't need a specific certification or skill hours to say that I can do this job. Like, if I talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, I've been here for 4 or 5 years versus a 10, 15 years, they have a degree and their degree was in like history, but they're a software engineer. Well, you did something in the interim because it used to be about, well, you went to school in the field and that's where you went, or you made the attempt to, but that hasn't happened in a long time.
No.
So do you just want, we're talking about classism.
Well, and
to a small degree, one of many aspects of this.
Yeah.
We're talking about creating this degree of separation, no pun intended, for it's like, how much were you willing to invest in the thing that you say you know about? And are you going to do that here versus like, yeah, I have this specific skill set. I went to school for this and this is what you asked for. And I'm here now and you're telling me I'm unqualified.
Yeah. I think there's something also, and I don't know how much of this happens anymore, but it used to be where if you have a bachelor's degree, it counts for this many years of experience. If you have a master's degree, it counts for this many years of experience, especially for positions that don't necessarily require that. And I think that we've gotten away from that, because now what's happening is exactly what was in this HBS article, which is you're requiring a bachelor's degree for a position that does not require a bachelor's degree.
I can learn this on YouTube.
Right. I can do LinkedIn learning courses, on specific topics. And now I have the same knowledge, if not more. And so we're negating people like you, and I know there are others with similar experience who have 8 years of experience doing the thing, like in it and implementing and all of that. And we're negating that because somebody has a bachelor's degree and like 2 years of experience. And I'm not saying that that person doesn't have valid experience.
Right.
It's not about that. But I think this goes back to, am I being rejected by the ATS? No, you're being rejected by a knockout question that's saying you have to have these
X amount of
types of education. And if you don't have that, but like that still doesn't make sense to me for the same reason that you said, somebody with a history degree doing, engineering or something like that.
Right.
Like,
because we did it with certifications as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I noticed this specifically when I was mostly in talent acquisition with engineering and adjacent roles. So specifically engineering, like software development and product. And even project management. I'll throw them in there. It, because I went to school maybe for a certain thing, or I worked in a particular field for X amount of time, and I made this transition and I put in the effort to make this transition. I put in a year's worth of effort, and I've also been at this company because it mostly happened with internal candidates too. So that's a nuance I want to throw in there. I also not only went out of my way to acquire this new skill because, again, one of the things you had painted on your wall was we encourage exploration and curiosity and all of these things.
Right.
And then you hire someone with less experience than me, no knowledge of the company. And yes, they have the basics of the skill set. They maybe haven't exercised it in a way that needs to be yet. But you put degree over certification when both are valid. One just took a different approach and maybe, of course, different amount of time. And we don't know what all those things are, especially if you're not familiar with the hundreds of certification programs out there. And then that goes back to like, okay, well, the title, what institution did you get this certification from? Is this thing well known? In the HR world, you have SHRM and HRCI. Well, there's a bunch of others.
Yeah.
That aren't as popular. So is that less valid, even though I have the same amount of experience, execute the same amount of things, had the same amount of results for the production I was putting out, but because I have, I think it's like AIPC, that makes me less qualified than a SHRM certificate holder, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. They teaching the same stuff, and I still paid $1,000 for this piece of paper.
Right. Okay. Look, there's a lot we can talk about. Okay, there's two more common misconceptions that I want to talk about because this is such a long episode, but I think it's so important. I think these are the conversations that need to happen, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to talk about networking because this was something that we talked about super early on. And one of the misconceptions is networking shouldn't matter if I'm qualified. Mm. And I mean, no.
No. Yeah.
This is the nuance between if I have two people and somebody blindly applied in and another person is a referral and they have the exact same experience, I'm probably going to end up choosing the referral.
Right. Because there's a connection you can make.
Yeah.
And even that, we can talk about how it's based on trust and all the other things and tenure and all the things that play into, your referral, making it, into the company, because it is just your friend, right? Like we can't sit here and say it's not a friend. This is your friend. Networking absolutely still matters. I think what's getting lost in that particular part of the conversation is that one, again, networking doesn't work the same for everyone. And the people who have the capacity, privilege, whatever, to pick and choose whose DM they open, accept, whatever, right. They're well within their right to do that, again. But at the same time, those same people can't complain about what's coming to them because you do have people coming to you. Networking, I think we've had enough conversations about how networking, what it is and what you should do. Yeah. We need to talk about the biases within networking because that's where the shortcoming is. And again, when it was popular to talk about this within the context of DEI, there was many a conversation about how people need to diversify their networks. Well, a lot of people took that as, well, I'm just going to look in different industries, not like, okay, my company is based in this city, this part of it, whatever. What community resources are available for me to tap into that, one, I can prove that I'm here for a genuine reason and I want to contribute. I do think there absolutely should be a community aspect, and not just for the sake of a tax break, but for the sake of you put this giant building or office on my block. And you're here now, and people are walking by this thing every day who look very different and behave very different than the people who are walking in and out this building every day. And we're going to have a call out. When I was working at One Financial in Boston, I saw how a lot of y'all was looking at me when I walked in that building to go to the 20th floor every day for a year. You're not, I see you, right? Yeah. People see that. And the more we pretend that we're not seeing that, the worse this continues to get. So networking absolutely still matters. In a lot of cases, it matters more, but we have to understand that within that, it matters more because people are being very specific about who they network with. You cannot prove that it's for a bad reason, right? But to act like it doesn't exist is where, again, we create a layer of just not being authentic about what is happening here on the other side of that. Everybody's choosy about who they want to be around. And how are you being choosy is the conversation that has no longer happened on a larger scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I told you, we said at the beginning, we're going there. We're going to go all the way there.
Yeah. And this is, so again, nuance and context, right? This is such a nuanced conversation for everything that Tank just said. And I think that people think that networking is a magic pill.
Right.
And this magic potion, well, if I just get to the right person, then it's going to happen. If I just cold DM this person and they connect with me, then I'm going to get the thing. Look, that could happen. It depends on the person.
Depends on the person. I got a lot of unopened emails in my LinkedIn inbox right now.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people in there who I'm never going to hear from.
Yeah. Like I remember early on in the podcast when I was trying to recruit more, I'm going to say like average professionals that are not constantly doing interviews, right? So it's your more like mid-level average person. And the amount of messages that I sent because I looked at their profile and I was like, oh, you have an interesting title or you work at this like really cool company and I'd like to hear your experience or whatever it was. So many of those went unanswered. And I was shocked because I was like, one, you're not checking this. Why do you even have a profile on here?
Right.
Two, I'm approaching you with an opportunity that is going to benefit you professionally to come onto a podcast and talk about yourself, your experience, your whatever it is. And you can now use that as marketing for yourself as a professional. And now when somebody searches your name, guess what's going to come up? My podcast.
Episode gonna come up. Hey, they gonna hit Julia up and be like, hey, this person was on your media saying a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about them?
Let me tell you, I know when somebody from a past episode is like on the hunt for a new position. Do you want to know why? My Google search analytics line up with their name.
Yep.
And I know that they are putting feelers out and people are Googling them and searching them and their episode with me is coming up.
Right.
You know, like it.
And look, shameless plug. If y'all make it this far into the episode and you go check your LinkedIn inbox and you see my face, because this is a very distinct look, and you ain't opened that email yet, it would be really nice if you did. Even to tell me no. Just say no. Or you ain't got to put me on or nothing. But I hit you up.
Yeah. For real. Okay. I want to highlight some research that was really interesting to me that we found as we were, putting this episode together. So there was research that was done back in the 70s. Okay. And I know I am the first one to say we should not be looking at research from the 1900s, from that far back.
Last century.
Right. Last century. But what I want to do is compare it to now. And that is the interesting part. So this was a study by somebody named Granovetter, and he found that 56% of professionals found their jobs through personal contacts who were acquaintances, not close friends. Okay, so this was back in the 70s. And I would argue that's good old boy club behavior right there.
Because you needed somebody's phone number. There was no email. You needed somebody's phone number and their house address and their work address.
This was some serious work you had to put in back then.
And you had to memorize all three of those things.
Oh my gosh. So then 50 years later, LinkedIn does research, and LinkedIn does a ton of research. So there's so much out there based on the data that they have, where they analyzed over 20 million users and found basically the same thing, that weaker ties created better access to job opportunities than a stronger tie. And so that to me is so interesting.
It is.
Because what does that tell you? Your BFF is possibly not the one.
I made a video about this. I made a video about this last year. I said,
I don't remember. We need to resurface that.
I'll make a new version of it. I gotta remember. I'll find it. But I made a video about this, and I called out that some of y'all people not really your people.
Yes. Okay. I remember this now.
And in whatever capacity that looks like for you, right?
Right.
I had a very personal experience with this last year leading from the year before, where I thought what I thought, and I was very wrong, even though this was a long-standing relationship, like the homie. And as things started to kind of, deteriorate, not between us, but just like in my struggle of looking for a new opportunity, whatever, your super close person has a very specific POV and even like a timeline for when they think you should have been good already. And I think there's a lot of positive to that, because there's one side of it where it's like, all right, cool. Like, I know you can do it. You told me all about your thing, whatever. But this kind of ties in one of the many social conversations around like relationships, specifically platonic ones, where for a while it was a trend to be like, well, I don't know what my friends do. Like, my family doesn't know what I do. Things like that, right? Yeah. And it's like, well, we can, people love to talk about themselves, but most of us don't. Most of us feel like we're droning on about our experience or something cool we did or whatever. So we're pulling, one side is pulling back because they don't want to sound pretentious or, know-it-all, whatever it is they're feeling. And then the other side is pulling back because they're like, well, there's not really, this is what they're doing isn't something that I'm curious about. So like, I don't really feel the need to ask a bunch of questions. I have told this story too. Yeah. I watched this happen to me and was like flabbergasted.
Right.
And I went from that, and I told people that it's like, there are people playing in your face, and everyone that you think they're talking to, they're not. Or if they are, they're talking about you in a very specific way, or allowing someone else to talk about you in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And they have a perspective now that is less inclusive of what they know about you and more about what the world is saying about you, even though like you have a deep tie to this person.
Yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely a thing. And I think what LinkedIn tells on everybody is, you can see your mutual connection. So people are going to ask about you on the back end, right? People hit up random strangers that they just see in your network and ask about you. It doesn't even have to be close to you.
Yeah.
But that's very, very true. I've watched it happen to so many of us, where it was like, I thought like this person was going to put me on. Like they I told them what I did in a little bit more detail because we're friends or we're related, whatever. And, the response I got was, to be frank, standoffish. And it was not what I thought I was going to get. And then there's the added layer of like, well, again, one of the many directions it was coming from, and in so many words and behaviors where it's like, well, you're trying to take the easy way out by trying to lessen your workload. That's what networking is, to not do this by my damn self.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, right? Yeah. And I think that's the point, is to not do it by yourself. And the other side of that is like, this person was, again, really close to you, and they kind of opted into, this has been going on long enough. So like, you're the only person doing something wrong. It's like, well, you didn't put me on like I thought you said you were going to do, because you volunteered this. I was going to ask.
Yeah. Hold. Yes, I am still interviewing Tank. He brought me food.
Oh.
Did you think I was done?
I think it might be if you started at 11.
Oh, nope. We have a lot to talk about. Okay, Dan, make sure you cut all this out. Maybe we leave it in. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about this also from the lens of somebody that has a business, because, and I know that's not the topic here, but I think that this is all intertwined in terms of community, which we've talked about, you've specifically talked about multiple times, and support that we get from the people around us. And I'm gonna give a really good example. I have a friend from college. So we did college together. We were in the same program. I would not say that we were close friends.
Right.
But we knew each other. We worked on projects together. Like, we got together and studied things like that. So I knew her, she actually lives maybe 10, 15 minutes from me right now. I have never seen her in person since I've been living here. We both know we live here.
Right.
But we're not close.
You don't cross paths. Like it's
that,
not.
Yeah. Like, if I saw her in public, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, whoa,
right.
That's so cool. But we're just not could we? Probably. We could probably hang out, whatever. So I would say like we're acquaintances, whatever. She wrote a book. It came out, at the time of this recording, it came out like a week ago.
Okay.
And I bought that book immediately as soon as it was available. Am I interested in the story? Sort of, but also not really, because it's about grief and I'm not trying to deal with my grief.
Right.
And so I was like, I want to read this, but I have to be in the right headspace to read this. However, what I am still going to do, probably after this interview, is I'm going to take a picture of that. I'm going to do a little video. And I'm going to promote her book. The same that I've done for all my other friends who have written books that I don't even know in real life. Like, they're my internet friends, right?
I'm mentioned in a book that I've maybe had 3 conversations with this person, but we're connected on social media. They have busy life. I have a busy life. This book came out. I went and I got a copy of it to pre-read. I had no idea I was going to be mentioned in this thing. She didn't tell me that.
That's so cool.
I've read that thing 4 times now. I don't need to learn a single thing in that book.
Yeah.
But I have it.
But it's the support. Like, I know, and for those who don't know, like, I'm writing a book. It's coming out at the end of 2026. So I'm in this.
Right.
I know what she went through to write that book. I know it now. I probably still would have supported her before. But to me, for somebody to go through that type of work, I'm going to support them, especially if I know them.
Yeah.
In some capacity.
To the best of my ability.
Yeah. And this is the same thing. This is the same thing. It's like, you know this person well enough. And if you don't and you want to support them, then you find out.
Go ask questions. It's a lack of curiosity.
Yeah. It's crazy. Okay, we have at least one more to get through. You guys, look, we're doing our best, okay? But
we really are. Y'all have no idea.
Okay. This is the one though. This is the topic that prompted me to say, you're coming back on the podcast because we need to talk about this.
This is going to be good.
Okay. So the assumption is if a company posts a job, they are actively hiring. And we are not, okay, let me qualify this. Hold on. We are not talking about applicant pool posts and positions. That's not what I'm talking about. Those are usually on a company's website. I don't really see them out in the world, but they're on a company's website and it says, this is an applicant pool. You can apply here.
Application.
It's general, and they're constantly collecting applications for this type of position that is likely a high turnover position.
Right.
This is not what we are talking about. So if a company posts a job, are they actively hiring for that position?
The only people who know the answer to that question is whoever posted it. Right. And this is probably going to be the hardest of all of this, because after I made my video talking about LinkedIn and the investigation that has come up from the state of Texas, I had so many current talent acquisition professionals hit me up and say that, yeah, like the company tells me to post stuff, but like we're not talking to a soul who puts their info, who applies. And not just as a job seeker, but as, and these people too, these people who said this too, they're like, I'm not a fan of it, but I can't lose my job, so I post it.
Right.
And that is the really messy, unfortunate reality that statement is not true, unfortunately, in this window of time in the market, the majority of the time. Now, we can also, again, give added nuance, context, whatever, that like, okay, they are actively hiring, but they're not in a rush to hire. That is different.
Right.
They are looking for someone, but that thing is left open to be, again, these people don't always know what they're looking for. It's going to change. Like you said, it's going to be a temporal, it's going to be contract. There's a lesser need, but there's a lesser need for a broader range of time for someone to stick around. But the intensity of the requests for the skills you have are still that, if not more, as time goes on. I think what ends up happening here is, again, another kind of, I want to say minimal, but just like not full understanding of how job boards work, especially platforms like LinkedIn, where I'll give people the workflow more or less who maybe don't know what it looks like. Applicant tracking systems, most of them have the ability to integrate with another job. LinkedIn is usually the primary one, because especially if your company has a LinkedIn page, it's easier and slightly cheaper than, if you don't have an applicant tracking system because your company's not there yet, or you don't have a team that implements it, whatever, then posting a role one by one on LinkedIn where you got to pay a couple $100s for whatever. And both of those things require a budget, but they're very different because the approach is different. LinkedIn, in my experience, takes about 24 to 36 hours to have that role feed from the applicant tracking system onto LinkedIn's job. It also takes just about that same amount of time to no longer exist when that role is closed. There are a couple things that happen, because I have been guilty of this, where you take the role down and maybe you forgot to click the option to have it removed from said job board. It's still quote unquote a ghost job, but that was an accident. To candidates, though, that doesn't matter. because they're like, well, and I still have all my alerts on. I have been seeing the same roles pop up for the 13, 14 alerts I have set up for
Yeah.
almost a year.
That's crazy.
Almost a year. I get it. They show up between Tuesday and Thursday from 5 a.m. Tuesday to almost midnight on Thursday. From LinkedIn, Built-in, Indeed, all three of them. And they're the same spots I have seen for almost a year. So, between the news 2 weeks ago, that I have a personal problem with being under the radar in the way it has, with Attorney General Ken Paxton being like, hey, we have a conversation about this. And then what was announced yesterday, which I actually didn't know was a lawsuit until I saw that update about the lawsuit yesterday.
That was the one in California, right?
Yeah. So this lawsuit is essentially kind of like it's a catalyst for what Ken Paxton wants to investigate, right? Because the original lawsuit is how LinkedIn may have violated antitrust laws with monetizing communicating with people and their settings and access that you have to that once you pay for it, not giving you full access or withholding certain aspects of being able to connect with people, which is the whole point of the platform in the first place, right? Ken Paxton is investigating the second layer to that, where it's like, oh, well, if, and I'm making the connections here. Y'all can go read both of them articles yourself because I have them linked. What Ken Paxton is looking at from 2 weeks ago is, okay, well, people are paying $40 to $70 a month for LinkedIn Premium, and I'm gonna add my personal experience to this because I have been talking about this for 4 years. I stopped using Premium a year ago, and there was no major difference in what I noticed between paying for it and not paying for it. And a lot of people are saying that. And a lot of people stopped paying for it before that or never bought into it because they didn't feel right about it in the first place.
Yeah.
The only other platform that is a social media platform that I'm aware of that you have the option to buy into for more buttons to push and ways to connect is Twitter. I'm calling him what his daddy named him. Okay. That's the only one that's like, hey, you gotta give us some money if you want these extra things, you want to be verified, whatever. But you actually get those things,
right?
Because at the moment we don't have proof that there is a verification process beyond confirming that there's a legitimate technical connection between a company and the job they're posting on the platform. Beyond that, we don't know if there's like a team or something, a task force, something in place to create a sense of accountability for companies that are posting these roles. Because I think the other part too is like, okay, there's one side where it's like, all right, well, the companies are the one posting the job, so why don't we go after them? There's a missing connection here that I think people are just like, well, I finally got proven right, so I'm just gonna stick with this. Is having heard from these recruiters who are like, and one yesterday left a comment. She was like, yeah, I went on LinkedIn and went to our company page and saw a job that I took down like 6 months ago. But because that role is archived and not like deleted, it's just getting applications, but that recruiter can't see it because that job is offline. But LinkedIn hasn't taken it down. Circling back to the beginning of what I was saying, I have been getting alerts for companies for the same roles for almost a year, every week.
And this,
so that's not, I'm not no lawyer. I'm not suing nobody. This is one experience I'm sharing right now. And it just so happens that according to this video, tens of thousands of people are having this experience or had it.
Well, and I think it goes back to who's the ownership, who has the ownership of this.
Right.
And I think that's what, what's his name? Ken Paxton.
Ken Paxton.
I think that's what he's asking also is like, is this LinkedIn's responsibility? Is this the organization? You know, and this goes also back to job boards that source from company websites, which is why if you followed me for any amount of time, I will always tell you to go to the company site to apply.
Mhm.
Use Indeed and use LinkedIn to search.
Right.
And then go find that position on the company website. Because if it's not on the company website, it probably doesn't exist, or it's an old requisition or something like that. The only caveat I would say to this, and this is not really my audience, but I'm just going to say it anyway, is really localized small businesses that use Indeed. So, for example, like our landscaper that redid part of our lawn and stuff, he puts positions on Indeed.
Right.
Because he's one guy.
Right.
know?
This is what they have access to. This is what they know how to use. This is what's worked for them, whatever the case may be.
Whatever. But even he said the last hiring round that he did, which wasn't too long ago, it was terrible. It was terrible. Like his experience as a hiring manager was terrible.
Yeah.
Because either the candidates weren't right, or they ghosted him, they wouldn't respond to the communications, or they wanted like double what he was paying. And I'll tell you, he was paying fair for what the job was. All these things, right? And he was like, what the heck? How am I supposed to find somebody willing to do this work? And so it is happening on both sides.
Yeah.
But I think as a job seeker, and this sucks, right? Because it's like, well, aren't I supposed to trust these sites? No.
I tell people all the time, LinkedIn, while it is the only social media platform with a purpose and an intention, it's still a social media platform. I dislike it as much as many. People don't have to respond to you. People don't have to engage with you. People don't have to like your comments. People don't have to repost your posts. Giving a little bit of support to the other side, though, again, seeing so much of the advice of network and expand, your opportunities and possibilities for opportunities. Being on social media still, especially that platform specifically, there has to be better overall moderation on both sides. And I've offered this critique a bunch of times on the platform themselves. I mean, I think it was almost 2 years ago now, there was a young woman who went super viral on TikTok because I call her my little cousin. We are not related, but she largely exposed an issue that plays a huge role in what is coming out now about LinkedIn and any other job boards, that because people on that video were like, well, Indeed next. And like, I get it, but Indeed's not charging you money yet to see jobs, right? Because that's the specific issue that is being that LinkedIn is being accused of. We gotta use the legal words. That's what being accused of. They're asking for money for things that may or may not be valid. They're not being managed properly. Then their moderation is awful. But she made a fake LinkedIn profile.
Okay, hold on. I have to give context. So let's give a little bit of context though to what the Premier, whatever it's called, in LinkedIn was before.
Right.
It was not access to jobs.
No.
It used to not be that. It used to be you became like a preferred person. So you got moved to the top on the back end. And then you got in-mails.
Right.
So you were able to message whoever.
You were getting something.
Yeah.
And it was
but
evolving.
it was never you see this exclusive job situation. That was never what it was.
Right.
But they're saying that that's what it is now. And then that's unethical.
Right.
Basically.
That's,
and illegal.
Because this didn't just that's not how it started.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I wanted to say that because those of us like OGs on LinkedIn, remember.
Yeah. Like it was like, oh, you had the gold square next to your name. You're legit. Like, I'm gonna see what
Yes.
you're about. But
You're a
because that's
real
the other part of
person.
this.
You're a real person also. Like,
Right.
the assumption was you paid for premium. I don't know why I couldn't find that word earlier. You paid for premium. So I know that you are invested in this was like
Right.
the thought process.
But now every single job is promoted. Every single status is promoted. I don't know if anyone has noticed that.
Yes.
Every single one of them. So the antitrust issue there that's being alleged is, well, if everything is promoted, then you're not there is no moderation process to, decide what content gets pushed based on how much someone invested in boosting their status or whatever they're talking
It's
about
pay
now.
to play.
It's pay to play.
It's pay to play.
And it does have the potential to go further down the wrong path if they are guilty of this, right?
Right.
Because with the antitrust one, the one that's happening in California right now, it has been made public that they are trying to not have any of this happen at all, and the court was just like, nah, we're gonna have this conversation. This is also
Right.
something I was thinking about yesterday in the people space specifically, or things that pertain to career, anything career related in the last few years. This isn't the first time this happened. This happened with Sherm in Colorado with one of the couple of discrimination lawsuits that they're working through or have worked through. Where they were trying to be like, well, we're going to dismiss this, or we're motioning to dismiss because there isn't anything here. And the court's like, no. So there is an awareness by the powers that be to be like, all right, well, the economy's messed up, so something has to give here in terms of how people are being treated, behaving, XYZ. And same with Workday, also in California, where I think it was San Francisco federal court, where they were trying to get the case dismissed. And the judge was like, no, actually, we need you to submit all the information you have about companies that are buying into a particular aspect of your platform to help you prove that you aren't doing what people are accusing you of doing. And all these cases, except for the new Ken Paxton one, has been happening since 2022 at minimum. So we're talking 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, this is a thing and it's coming out and it's evolving, and we need to pay attention to it because it's going to impact social media. It's going to impact LinkedIn, obviously, depending
There's
on
already wrong information that's coming out, because people are feeling I feel so. People have reached out to me and be like, how did you know you were right? And I'm like, I still kind of don't. Like, yeah, I've called out a lot of these things, but like, I'm not Jesus. Like, I'm an anxious, hypervigilant individual who just so happens to like peak, like, from a social aspect, the way we've been having these conversations, what we don't consider in a lot of ways is that like where we might be fueling an idea that doesn't need to take place. And I've said this about AI in the hiring process, where the misunderstanding previously about how you're being chosen for a role or not has gone from a myth that was kind of on the way to being debunked to a product feature that is pissing everyone off.
Yeah.
And that's where my like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this because everybody's more so focused on trying to make the next person look bad versus like, hey, we do actually have an issue here. Let's have a conversation about why this is happening and why certain aspects that aren't happening should be happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, people don't want to hear the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a good thread into everything. Like, I think that hiring managers don't want to hear the truth about the candidate experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think recruiters don't want to hear the truth about the candidate experience. But I also think that candidates don't want to hear the truth about what's happening on the other side. And then you have people like you, like Mike, who I'll tag him because we've mentioned him a couple times. I'll put his LinkedIn in the, or not his LinkedIn, his TikTok in the blog post. But we're actively telling you what is happening. And you are in the comments saying, nope, that's not true. And I know, like, I get Mike stuff all the time, and he's like, I literally do this every day. This is exactly what's happening.
That's what's happening. I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying, whatever. I have my own ways of going about it, but I'm not going to pretend like this information isn't what it is.
Well, and we're not invalidating your personal singular experience.
It's what they're calling the bean soup theory right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, y'all can make up whatever names you want for it, but
I don't even care. But the problem is we all have to take a step back and go, do I believe this because of my singular experience, even if I had the experience multiple times?
Right.
Is it my personal experience, or are there possibly other things going on?
Right.
Right. And I think that's what you're really good at. I think that's what Mike's really good at, in terms of even in the comments and responding and saying, okay, that was your experience, but this was somebody else's experience. Or maybe that did happen to you with an inexperienced recruiter or an inexperienced hiring manager. But I don't do that. And this is the nuance and the context that we have to start getting into when it comes to hiring.
Yeah. And that involves not just being willing to hear the truth, but more importantly, being willing to tell it.
Yes. Yes.
Because somebody's lying a little bit.
Right. Right. Tank. Oh my gosh. Okay. The full recording of this is 2.5 hours. We beat
the
last one by an hour. So I'm just going to apologize in advance to my editor, who's going to have to go through all of this and figure out how to break it up, because we're definitely breaking it into 2 episodes.
Yeah. We're not going. This isn't a Marvel movie. I'm not going to do that.
No. But Tank, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experience and your updates, talking about all of these assumptions and these situations that we are all hearing, and getting into the details and the nitty gritty. I appreciate you so much for coming back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for hanging with us on this episode of Control Your Career. If there is one thing that I hope that you take away from this conversation, it's that the hiring process is rarely as straightforward as it appears to be. I think we've
we did enough. If you still have thoughts and comments, then just leave them. But that's all I got for you.
Yeah. There are more people involved, more moving parts, and more competing priorities than most candidates will ever see. And understanding this does not get rid of the frustration that you feel. We obviously have talked about this throughout both episodes now. But it can help you make better decisions and focus your energy on the things that you can actually influence in your job search. Once again, a huge thank you to Tank for joining me and sharing both his professional expertise and his personal experience navigating today's absolutely wild job market. I will have all his links for everything into the blog post for this episode so that you can connect with him. And honestly, let's get him hired. Like, somebody that's listening to this.
Somebody say yeah.
Come on. We need to do that. 100%. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with somebody that is also navigating the job search and trying to better understand today's hiring process. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, you control your career.